Welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Market Minute. My mission is to help you better understand the latest trends in the U.S. real estate market and share with you my analysis and industry expertise. I want to help you gain an advantage and feel confident whenever you're buying and selling real estate. I'm your host, Mark Salib. I'm a passionate real estate professional, advisor, and investor, and I love what I do. Follow and DM me on Instagram at The Salib Group. Send me an email, mark@thesalibgroup.com. And as always, thank you for tuning in to today's show. All right, right now there's one question almost everyone in housing keeps asking, and it's where are mortgage rates headed next? And honestly, I just think a lot of people are getting pretty exhausted, maybe even confused, and just kind of waiting around for some clarity. So today what I thought would be a good idea is let's go through what some of the biggest housing and financial institutions are forecasting themselves for mortgage rates through 2026 and even into 2027. Now, some of these forecasts, what I found interesting was they're pretty close to each other, but there were some important nuances that kind of tell you a lot about where they think the economy may go, or housing may go, and just sort of where experts are thinking comes next. All right, so right now, the 30-year fixed mortgage rate is hovering around 6.6%, maybe in that 6.6 to 6.7% range as of right now at the time of this recording. Now, depending on the lender and the points and the loan scenario, right? I mean, it's going to range. It's going to be in that range, right? 30-year fixed, a little different than 15-year, right? DSCR loan, a little bit different. But anyway, in general, I like to focus on the 30-year fixed when I talk about it on this show because it's what most people are interested in. It's the most popular, loan out there. Now, we're still way above what we saw back in those ultra low rates, during the pandemic, right? We're just way, way, way above that. Still, remember, we saw 2.5%, 3%. Buyers are still pretty psychologically used to that. So, I know everyone is so rate sensitive, and I think it's because of how low they once were. And people wish they could just kind of reach back in that, go into some kind of like time portal and just go back to those days, but they don't come back, right? Remember what it took to get rates that low. It took a global pandemic. It took the Fed to ease policy so much to stimulate what was basically, if you remember, was a frozen economy, right? All right, but mortgage rates are the heartbeat of this housing market because affordability is so stretched, right? Buyers are so payment sensitive. It's not just they're obsessed about mortgage rates. They care because prices are so high. They're much higher than they used to be, and they're trying to figure out how to afford them. Okay, let's get into it. I want to start with Fannie Mae, right? Fannie Mae currently forecasts mortgage rates around 6.2%. And gradually easing through 2026, being all the way down to 5.9% by late 2026 into 2027. Now, that's one of the more optimistic forecasts out there, but they think inflation cools gradually, they think rates will ease, and they even think housing activity improves from here significantly more. All right, Mortgage Bankers Association, the MBA. Now, right now, the MBA is a lot more cautious than that. They have rates in the low to mid 6% range through 2026, so not changing a whole lot, and even into 2027. Now, some MBA forecasts think that rates may struggle to even get anywhere near below 6%. All right, how about the National Association of Realtors, the NAR? All right, their forecast is around 6% through 2026, so they again see rates easing from here. Right? Lawrence Yun, right? Main economist, chief economist for the NAR. He basically thinks rates are going to get better. They're going to improve. Affordability is going to get better. Housing activity will slowly improve. So some thawing in that frozen housing market. Again, pretty optimistic. All right, how about Wells Fargo? Wells Fargo thinks we're going to get anywhere from 6.15 to 6.25% throughout 2026, the remainder of 2026, and into 2027. Now, they think it's going to stay that way through 2027. So it is a sort of higher for longer mortgage rate environment, but lower than where we are today. Morgan Stanley, their forecast, more optimistic. They got us in the high 5% range by late 2026. So again, much, much more optimistic. Realtor.com and Redfin pretty much around the same. They think around 6.3% mortgage rates through much of 2026. But, one thing you notice out of all of these is that they're all clustering around that low to mid 6% range. And it's really interesting because, these are different firms. I mean, these are different viewpoints that see the housing market from different angles, from banks to different housing groups, lenders, mortgage bank association, mortgage companies, economists, but yet everybody's forecast is kind of around the same and pretty optimistic from here. Now, look, the broad consensus is that rates probably ease somewhat, but stay relatively elevated above that 6% range. Now, nobody's forecasting, 5, well, there were some in the high fives, but, let's call it like even mid fives, 4%. Nothing. Nobody's forecasting that. Nobody's forecasting above 7% or 8% or something like that. So, if you're waiting around, right, for something to go either one way or the other, most forecasters don't think it's going to happen. Like, hey, this is it. This is where we're going to just hang around for a while. So you better, get on that horse, make a decision, right? Decide what are you doing? Are you going to buy? Are you going to sell? What are you doing? Right? Because we're not going to change much from here. Now, here's the part that's important. The entire reason mortgage rates spiked higher, what was the reason? What happened, right? We talk about it all the time. We had a geopolitical shock. We had an exogenous event. And historically, what happens? Exogenous shocks or geopolitical events, they do eventually come to an end. That matters because before the war, right? Before the oil spike, before all these fears of, oil getting through the Strait of Hormuz and all this inflation panic, where were mortgage rates? Well, they were in the low 6% range and even touched 5.99% at one point. So if you're a believer that these geopolitical tensions between the U.S. and Iran are easing and will continue to ease, if you're a believer that oil stabilizes, if you're a believer that, shipping through the strait normalizes, and if you're a believer that we may not see another major shock to the economy for the rest of the year and into early next year, well, then why wouldn't rates gradually move back toward those same levels again? Because the same thing that caused it is the same thing that would make it go back when it goes away, right? So this is what I think probably happens, right? I don't think we're going to see anything more than that. Just a gradual easing back into that low 6% range. Could we see high 5? I'd love to, right? Could we, but again, this is assuming no geopolitical crisis, no major, nothing that shocks the system like it did. If that happens, I have no reason not to believe that we will see those rates again. And I'm going to tell you something really important. Even modestly lower rates will matter a lot. If we get back into that low 6%, even high 5% range, we've seen what happens. We saw pending sales improve. We saw builder confidence improve, and we saw buyer traffic improve. It was in the data. We went over it. So this tells me that this market is so rate sensitive, but it's understandable that it is. It shouldn't be judged. It should be realized that prices are higher than they used to be, and rates do matter more than they ever have. And when prices go up as much as they have, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% in some markets, well, then of course people are going to be rate sensitive. They need to afford those monthly payments. So to me, this is probably a good forecast, one that I think gives us hope, gives us optimism, and hopefully for us, we can look forward to in the next, just this year and into 2027. That is it for me today. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. And as always, if you have questions or need specific advice, ideas, or just some help regarding your particular real estate needs or situation, or if you're just looking to buy or sell real estate in Florida, well then DM me on Instagram at The Salib Group, or just send me an email to mark@thesalibgroup.com. Don't forget to leave a rating for the show, follow, subscribe, help others find the show, and be informed and educated about the real estate market just like you. Until next time. Before we end today's show, stop what you're doing and subscribe right now to Real Estate Market Minute Plus. Listen to all episodes ad-free, get exclusive bonus episodes and content, and help support the show's growth, longevity, and future improvements. Go to realestatemarketminute.supercast.com right now. You can also find the link in this episode's show description. Check it out. I know you'll love it.